It's time to grow and scale your coaching business the impact-driven, simple and sustainable way. Welcome to Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. I'm your host, Sofia, mindset and business coach, supporting ambitious new and rising coaches to master their mindset, create an aligned and profitable strategy, and grow a six-figure business and beyond using the Rising Coach method. I built $1 million business by the age of 26 in under 4 years, and I've coached hundreds across the globe to build incredible businesses that create freedom and fulfillment whilst having a whole lot of fun along the way. And in this podcast, I will teach you the mindset, strategy, and energetics to do the same. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. In this week's episode, I have the absolute honor and privilege of interviewing my dear client, Emma Johnson. Emma Johnson is founder of Emma Johnson & Co. She is a multi-six-figure business success strategist, known as the Queen of Automation, whose entire mission is to help female coaches, therapists, and service-based business owners reach their fullest potential and become wildly successful in a way that's simple, sustainable, and enjoyable, which I know is something you all want if you're listening to this podcast. After all, what's the point of accomplishing great things if it requires you giving up your personal life, living in a constant state of anxiety, or burning out, right? Using her ADD method, automate, delegate, and ditch strategy, she has been able to build a thriving coaching business in the midst of a global pandemic whilst homeschooling 2 children in a brand new country with no family or friends or support, and has helped thousands of others to do the same. I have the honor of working with Emma. She loves tech and systems and automations. I can say that from experience. She loves supporting others. She's such a cheerleader for other people, and she's been incredible to work with so far. And I love that we're on the same wavelength of seeing the value in long-term investments, and that's exactly what Emma has done with me. Like, she continues to work with me because she believes in that long-term sustainable approach, and you see that in the embodiment of everything that she does and everything that she is. And you'll hear this in this week's episode. Her speaking into that integrity piece of what she says is also what she does behind the scenes and how she's rewarded for that. So as a systems and automation specialist, Emma loves to simplify success and has a special talent for breaking down even the most overwhelming tasks or projects into manageable pieces. Her superpower lies in removing the overwhelm-inducing fluff by defining and implementing systems and automations in business that are intentional, aligned, and manageable, so that you get to stay in your genius zone of helping your clients and your business gets to thrive as a result. She offers practical step-by-step systems, strategy, and support to suit your needs at each stage of business, because your business is her success. Business really does get to be simple. I hope you enjoyed this episode as a nice spin for a change to talk about systems and structures and tech and automation, because it's something that a lot of people shy away from and tend to avoid because of the overwhelm and the fear and their mindset around it. And she breaks all of that down and shows you how simple it gets to be and how tech is actually here to serve you and not to go against you. So enjoy this episode. You're going to absolutely love it. And I hope you love Emma just as much as I do. Enjoy. Hello, Emma, and welcome to Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. So looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I've got a whole heap of questions I want to pick your brain about and get you to share with everyone else too, to support any service-based businesses that are starting and growing their business as you've so successfully done. So let's dive in. I know that you refer to yourself as a business success strategist, and you help female coaches, therapists, and service-based business owners to reach their fullest potential and become wildly successful in a way that's simple, sustainable, and enjoyable, which we absolutely love. And I know a big part of what you help your clients with is actually automation and tech and systems so that they can create a successful business. And knowing that this area can be often an area that most business owners do not enjoy and happily delegate to someone else, I'm really curious to hear what made you fall in love with systems, tech, automations, because you geek out on it so much. I'd love to hear like how that came up in your journey.
Um, I think it's more a case of I like my life to be simple, and I think social media has got a lot to answer for when it comes to making tech more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that's built up a lot of fear in people. And the reality is, if you know what you want to achieve, then actually mapping a tech solution to that does not have to be complicated at all. It's the case, most people just go in and we're like, well, I must need this thing because this person on Instagram is using this and they're having wild success. But then people try to map their version of business onto that, and that's when it becomes really complicated. So I geek out on simplifying things. I geek out on finding the path of least resistance, mainly because I'm a mum and I have no support network. I live 11,500 miles away from my family. As you can probably tell, I have a British accent. I live here in Australia. But for me, it's like it's a no-brainer. I'm like, well, what will make my life easier? And it just happens to have the label tech on it, which puts the heebie-jeebies into most people. But I'm really here to say you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be scared if you know what you want something to do, and you just take a moment to find the solution that actually does what you need and doesn't have extra bells and whistles, then it gets to be really simple.
You worded that so well because you're right. So many people freak out the moment they hear the word tech or systems or automations, like God forbid. Like people absolutely freak out. And you've just so simply explained how it's actually there to serve and support you and how it can be so beneficial when you don't have that resistance and lean into it and looking at it from the lens
Mm.
of this is actually going to make my life so much easier in the long run. And ultimately, if we want to have a sustainable, successful, and scalable business, we need to be setting it up to work in the long run, right?
Yeah, but
Amazing.
that's just it. We don't have to have all of the bells and whistles. And the key there, what you touched on, is it has to work for us. So if we want our life to be easier, then we have to objectively decide what level of hard do I want? Do I want this one that involves me being a slave to my business, sat at my desk, manually chasing everybody up, doing everything? Or could I be a little bit uncomfortable for maybe half an hour, which generally is the learning curve of most systems, let's face it. Could I be uncomfortable for half an hour and gain back how many hundreds of hours in terms of like time with my family or more client time, whatever?
I love that. And already, every time someone now comes to me with a tech issue, I'm going to make them listen to this episode because this is exactly what tech and systems does. So it's amazing that you've spoken into it from that lens, like really looking at how it's there to serve you and make your life so much easier in the long run, right? Is tech and systems something that you've taught yourself, or how did you learn how to get really good at it to the point that you could help others with it?
Yeah, I think really for me, it was that tech and systems is the label that everyone else recognizes it at. For me, it's like, well, this is what we do. Like, and we have systems in our life. Like it might be that you write down all the things that you need on your shopping list by having something magnetically stuck to your fridge door, and that's your system. Or it could be that you always put your keys back in the same place, or that you have a voicemail message on your phone and that takes messages from people. We all have systems in our lives, so tech and systems is, yeah, absolutely something that I've learned purely from the point of view of I want my life to be as easy as possible, and that means I want free time. I want to go away at weekends. I want to be able to like drop everything. I want my business to run whilst I take a month off and travel around Europe to go and see my family. So for me, it was a case of, I don't want to do these things myself. What can I do instead? So leaning into things like calendar booking systems, which, you know, is essential for all coaches. We need a system. And I don't want to be sitting there trying to figure out what time is it in New York? What time is it in Brisbane? What time is it in London? So embracing a system that does that for you. So I was like, oh, awesome. There are things that do this for me. And I literally need to send a link to somebody. So for me, it was like, right, well, if I don't have to do it and a system can do it, and it's not hard. And I say this with love, it isn't hard. There are a lot of people out there who make it sound harder than it is. So, and I know, Sophia, you and I will chat a little bit more about this, but leaning into the right advice, really, really important. That for me is a really important system.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I taught myself, but bear in mind, like I said, I'm a mum. I run a business. My husband is busy. We built a house. I got married. We emigrated to the other side of the world. All of this happened whilst like starting a new business, because I lent into the things that no human needs to do, which was like little systems. So calendar booking, I mentioned there, email automation, another awesome one, having a system that for when you're working with clients, that which you're doing, like every single person listening to this podcast, if they're working with clients, you do something with every single client. It could be that they need an invoice, or they need a contract, or they need an email, or they need access to a course portal. If you've done that once, document it, because that can be automated, and then you never have to do it manually ever again. So yeah, I guess in long story short, I taught myself, but I taught myself the bits that were essential to the way that I work, and they have made my life so much easier. And then people started approaching me and saying, Emma, how are you doing all of this? How are you planning a wedding? How are you building a house on the other side of the world? Because we were living in the UK at the time that we were planning the build in Australia. How are you selling businesses? How are you moving? How are you getting your kids? Because this is what I do. And I've set this up. And they were like, well, can you help me? So it really became something really beautiful, really organic, that people were looking at the way that I was living my life, and they wanted that for themselves. And something that was so clear to me, like night and day, you don't need to make it this hard. It can be really easy. And then I broke it down for people. And that's really where the whole side of systems and automation in my business became one of my core pillars. Systems is pillar number 4 in my business. I have foundations, mindset, strategy, and then we lean on systems. So we don't put systems in right up front. We make sure the foundations are in place, and then we lean on support.
I love that so much. That's so perfect. And thank you for sharing all of that. And one of my biggest takeaways of what you just shared is that we all have systems. Some systems just are easier and work faster and work for us than others, right? Like putting your keys in the same place is in of itself a system, and you just help people find better systems so that they can live their life and do the things that they actually want to spend their time doing. So that's perfectly said. Thank you. And yeah, you did start your business under a lot of really extreme circumstances. And I would go as far to say that often when people just have one of those factors at play, whether it's raising 2 children or moving overseas or building a house or whatever it might be, that in of itself can be really challenging. And so I would love to hear, like, what supported you to start and grow a business amidst all of that? Like, outside of systems, of course, like, of course, you implemented those systems, but is there anything else that supported you emotionally or during that journey to do that, in case there's anyone listening in a similar situation?
I guess I'm just one of those, I don't know if you can say bloody minded people, that like when I set my mind to something, I'm like, well, you know, if I want it, I'm going to go out and get it. So it's a case of like figuring that out. So really deciding like what is it that you want. And you're right, like people said to me, there's a lot going on there. Like selling a house is a big one. Getting married is a big one. Like moving anywhere is a big one. Going on a holiday is a big one. And I'm like, yeah, but these are things that I want. And I think you're very similar to me. It's like make a decision. Like, what do you want? And trust yourself. So then there, I guess the North Stars that I live by is make a decision and go for it, because I think wasted potential in any sphere is something that I have a little bit of an issue with. So for me, it's like, well, try it. If it doesn't work, like let's have, like if it doesn't kill you, but great. Like, if it doesn't work, you can try something else. Like it just makes who you are. I went through almost bankruptcy 10 years ago and now live like debt free in a multi-million-dollar house that we built. Just decide what you want. And I know I'm making it sound super simple, but really when it comes down to it, it comes down to a decision. And then lean in, ask, the bits that you don't know, ask for help with. The bits that you can't do yourself, lean into the support. And so many people feel that they must do everything themselves. I like I said, I'm a bit bloody minded and I make my lists and I do my things, but I can't build a house myself. So I lent in fully to that. And when I wanted to sort things for the wedding, I had lists. I'm a list girl, lists in place, and there were things that I couldn't do for that. And packing up my house, I went into the support for that. But I'd made a decision that I was going to go and create the life that I wanted, and I'll figure it out along the way.
I love that so much. Like, I full-heartedly agree. Whilst it's easier said than done, at the end of the day, it really comes down to making a decision and then leaning into that full experience. Like, it's the staying on the fence part that keeps people stuck, right? And it sounds like, sure, you can acknowledge these things were hard in of itself, let alone all together. But because you had decided, like, all of that brain capacity spent on what if, should, like trade-offs, all these things, like that's all gone, and you can just lean full-heartedly into the experience. And that's why you have the life that you have today.
Yeah, and I think something you touched on there, it's like, yeah, all these things are hard, but also not doing these things, that's hardship as well. So it's about making a decision, and inaction or indecision is just as much a decision as moving forward with something. We get to choose, and sometimes our choice will feel like taken away from us. But the reality is we get to choose. We get to choose how we feel about something. We get to choose what we want to do. We get to choose how we use our time. Every single day, we're making small choices. And when we say, I can't, what we're really saying is, I've decided that that's not possible for me right now. Some people, it's not possible for me, period. And I would challenge that. That's the bit where I really ask my clients, I ask myself, I know you and I have spoken about this, but really, really lean into, well, what do you want? Judgment aside, limitations aside, what do you want? Because then we can figure it out. But if you've already decided it's not possible for you, there is no plan of action that can be made.
So perfectly said, honestly. Thank you for sharing that, because whilst it can be uncomfortable, hard truths for people, ultimately, like, it's the truth, right? Now, you talk a lot about simplifying success. It's something you've done exceptionally well. I'm simply curious to hear, what does a simple, successful business look like to you, knowing that it's going to be different for everyone?
Totally. So for me, it's coming back to answering that question that we just spoke about. What do you want? And for most people, that is something they are not clear on. And then everything else literally feels like you're dragging your feet through mud, because it's like trying to get to a destination without knowing where it is, or trying to find, that perfect thing, but not knowing. So to simplify your business, to simplify your life, simply stop for a moment. Decide, what do you want? And 9 times out of 10, you are the one that is putting limitations on your own life. You have made assumptions. I do this to myself. Like, I have this conversation with myself on a daily basis, but I need to do this. I need to do that. I literally wrote an email to my list the other day about how my biscations were born because I'd sat down and gone, I really wish that the world could stop. And my husband went, whoa, hang on a minute. Why don't you go away? And I was like, yeah, but what about this? And what about that? And he goes, yeah, but don't you talk about simplifying your life? Decide what you want and go for it. And I was like, okay, thanks, husband. Thanks for holding that mirror up to me right there. But it's true. What do you want? Start there. That literally is the essence of simplicity. What do you want? And then we can start putting one foot in front of the other to go about getting that. But when we're not sure, and we're like, well, maybe this, maybe that, and maybe I'll try this, and maybe I'll try that. And suddenly we're literally hands, feet, head, everything in so many different pies that we have created overwhelm that just doesn't need to be there.
So true. So true. I want to move a little bit. I'm dedicated to providing you with as much valuable free content as possible to help you to grow and scale your coaching business sustainably. That's why I'm constantly rolling out new resources and events for you. To ensure that this podcast stays fresh with the latest offerings, I've compiled all our current free and paid offerings in one convenient place. Simply head over to www.sofiarosebernardi.com/links or follow me on Instagram at Sofia Rose Bernardi for the latest offerings. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and let's get back to the episode. I want to move a little bit on to your business growth because I've had the honor of working with you over the last half a year and we're continuing that journey. And when we started working together, I remember we made a few tweaks here and there to your business. And then all of a sudden you had a lot of clients come in the door and you were like celebrating some really big 20K months, 30K months, just continuously. And it was almost hard to keep up with. It was just incredible seeing like all of these wins you were constantly sharing. And I would love to hear from your personal perspective, like what were those shifts that really supported you to do that, just for anyone wondering like how they can grow and scale their coaching business too.
Yeah, totally. And I feel really, really blessed. I came across you, Sofia, on a Facebook group, I think, and I had been really, really burned by a couple of coaches. So, you know, I know there's a lot of people out there going, like, I've tried this and I've done this and it didn't work. And I would say in that, don't give up. Don't give up, because there are a lot of coaches out there. Like, I'm a coach, you're a coach, everyone listening to this, you know, is a coach. We're on the Rising Coach podcast. And your people are out there. So I had spent a lot of money, I think close to nearly 50,000 Australian dollars with coaches.
Wow.
And one ran off with my money and never to be seen. Contract signed, just didn't turn up for the coaching calls, promised a refund, never saw that. And I was told it was going to cost me a lot to go and chase it. Now that alone could have been, right, coach is awful. What it did is it taught me who I wanted to be as a coach, but it left me jaded. And then I think from a place of scarcity, then I'd lent into looking to work with somebody else, and the fit was totally wrong. It was a very masculine bro dynamic, and it just was completely out of alignment to me. It's not the way that I wanted to work. And so again, that one could have been like, oh no, right, 2 coaches now, seriously, what is going on? And then I reflected on myself about what headspace was I in when I was choosing the level of support that I needed? What was I energetically putting out there? And I know maybe not everyone is, I'm not very woo-woo, but I am a little bit, and I really, really believe in like the universe and energetics and just like putting in the energy that you want to receive back. And I was watching something that you were doing on social media, Sophia, and I was like, do you know what? I'm liking this energy. I'm really, really liking the energy. I'm liking the simplicity that's very in alignment with me. And I'm liking that this is strategically led. So I reached out to you and I had a really, really good feeling on the call. And I think that really was what it was. I didn't allow my past mistakes, for want of a better word. I made the choice. I made a poor investment. I'm going to live with that and I'm going to move on. I'm not going to let that stop me from moving forward. So I lent into working with you and being vulnerable as well, just talk, because it's hard as a coach. I'm doing this now, like we're on a live podcast, but to actually admit that you've made mistakes along the way. But I think that's what makes us human.
Oh
So
yeah.
I lent into you. I lent into working with you. I lent into, leaving my ego at the door, because yes, as a coach, and I would say even all the things that you taught me are things that I know, but it was that level of accountability, and it was that being vulnerable and just allowing myself to try again. I think that was the most important bit. And obviously, like you and I continue to work. I've re-signed with you, and I absolutely love that. And I would say that's now the energy that I've shifted with my clients. My clients re-sign to work with me because they
You're an
know
embodiment of
that,
that.
yes, they may have made mistakes, and we all do. Don't let that stop you.
Mm.
Find your person, because there is somebody out there for you. Find your person. And when you do, and I think you spoke about this on another podcast recently, about don't coach hop. Like,
Mm.
find your person, trust your person, lean into your person, and then allow yourself that spaciousness to expand into who you want to be.
I love that. Well, firstly, like, thank you so much. Like, that's just so kind of you to say all of those things. And second of all, it is really vulnerable and courageous of you to have so much evidence of hiring a coach not working out, not being enjoyable, and costing you a lot, because you're not going to gain anything if they don't show up and support you, right? For one. So, like, for
Mm.
you to have experienced that and have evidence of it happening multiple times, and then still leaning into like big investments with people such as myself, it says a lot about you and you having those skill sets that are actually required to rise as an entrepreneur, being able to take risks, being able to lean into discomfort, being willing to make big and bold and courageous decisions, and making those decisions and leaning into the experience. Like, something I've noticed with you, like in the time of working with you, is you lean into everything. Like, you show up, you ask for support, you ask for accountability, you support others, you celebrate other people's wins, you hold people in their low moments. Like, you're doing all of those things, all of which are traits that I've noticed as recurring patterns of people that are really successful in this space, and that's credit to you. So would you say that it kind of sounds like what a contributor to what led you to suddenly have these like 20 and 30K months and really continue to rise from there was actually like finding a coach that does work for you, and then just like following the processes and like implementing that, considering your previous experiences just weren't aligned? Like, would you say that was one of the bigger pieces, was the alignment that allowed you to sign more clients and increase your revenue?
I think we all have it within us. Like I'd had a lot of success before I signed with you. I'd had 100K launch on my own. I had consistent 10 to 15K months in my business. And I think it really is possible for people to have accidental success. I've seen it done. I wouldn't say that mine was necessarily accidental, but it's very possible for people to almost be a little bit blasé and just assume that like what got them to one level will see them through to other levels.
Mm.
So when I came to you, yeah, I'd had a lot of success. So my business hit 6 figures in 9 months, multi 6 figures by 12, and it's been consistently at that for the last 4 years. But there are low moments. You touched on this earlier about low moments of entrepreneurship, and those are generally that's what can kill a business. It's not like a lack of skill. It's not like or even a poor mindset. It's that self-doubt that creeps in when you receive one knock. So for me, I want to create sustainable growth. And I know that if I don't lean in to somebody who can hold me accountable, who is, energetically aligned with who I am and where I want my business to go, and has the confidence to show me my blind spots and call me out on my BS. We've all got it, haven't we? We've all got that like BS radar, where like we tell ourselves something and we know it's not quite right. And just leaning into somebody that isn't afraid to do that, somebody who doesn't like believe that by telling their clients like what their clients want to hear is what's going to keep them on, but the ones that have that confidence to say, do you know what? You're not being true to yourself there. That for me, and I think that's what my experience showed me, is I didn't want to be that coach. I didn't want to be that awful coach that ripped me off. I didn't want to be the coach that told me to do these strategies that I just knew were horrendous and awful and just were not me. I wanted somebody like yourself who has proven herself, continually proves herself, leads by example. That's who I want to be as a coach. And I knew that if I wanted to move forward in my business, I needed somebody who had that same ethos, that same belief. So for me, yeah, I could probably do it myself. I don't want to do this journey on my own. I don't want to ever think that I know everything. I know you have a coach and your coach has a coach. We all have people that we lean into because support is so important at all stages of business.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so true. You have a coach, I have a coach, my coach has a coach, her coach has a coach. Like, having support, it's, not necessarily just about knowing more. It's just about having someone with you every step of the way. And like you said, someone that can hold the mirror up at times and really like get you out of your own way, because we all go through those moments. So perfect. And something you mentioned just before that I want to come back to is around your bizcations. Now, I know what they are, but I would love for you to share what a bizcation is, as it's something that you've not only inspired me to do, but I know you've also inspired a lot of the mastermind members to do it as well. It's something you talk about a lot. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is and how it can benefit them, I would love for you to share that, because it's something, I automatically think of you whenever I hear the word now.
Yay! So yeah, the term bizcation was born about 3 years ago from that conversation that I was having with my husband sat at the table. And it was because I am a mum and I work from home, and a lot of people can relate to this. So I don't really get to go out. I don't get to surround myself with lots of people. I don't get an awful lot of spaciousness. And I wanted an opportunity really to stop hustling. I don't really like that term anyway. But for me, stepping back is just as important as charging forward. And sometimes we forget that. Like, again, when we fall into that like scarcity, it's like, oh, if I push a bit harder, if I push a bit harder. And like sitting at the table, my husband holding that mirror up, going to me that if that's what you want, like something inside of you is telling you you need a little bit of time out. Like, you go to major sports games and they all have a timeout, don't they? Because it's an opportunity to regroup. So bizcation is a combination of business with vacation. And it started off as just taking 3 days away because we had to juggle childcare and school. My kids are teeny tiny little bit older now, so they can like go to after school club and things. But to go away and literally take whatever that time needed to be, whether it was to sleep for 3 days and completely recharge, whether it was to go and have a massage, or whether it was to go and create. I literally got back from my latest bizcation yesterday, and that was like really birthing a brand new offer, coming up with the sales pages and the events and the copy. But it was also about meeting clients who I normally only see on Zoom, and going for a massage and having a lunch and having a sleep. So yeah, I love it. That's my time. I book it in once a quarter now, and for me it's a non-negotiable. It's that time where you get to catch up on whatever you need to catch up on. So I have a system in the business. I call it my shit list, the CEO shit list. Sorry for anyone if we're not allowed to use that word, we'll bleep it out. But I put down all of those tasks, those things that you just want to get done, but your busy time, your client time, things that it just never seems to happen. So everything goes on the shit list, and then the shit list comes out on Bizcation. And I just work through what I need to work through on. And having that opportunity I'm very fortunate that my husband supports me on this, but not to be a mum. So I get to sleep if I want to. I get to have a shower without a child walking in. And Sophia, you don't have children yet, but that's a luxury that you take for granted. And just being able to work till midnight if I want to, because I'm not being a wife in that moment. I'm not being a mum in that moment. I'm not being a support to my clients in that moment. That's what Bizcation is. So yeah, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend. And you might want to break yourself into it. Maybe go away for a weekend where you just indulge yourself, and then up it to 3 days. I go for 5 to 6 days at a time now, every quarter. It's something when we do our annual planning, it goes in the diary first. Launches and events get planned around Bizcation, because Bizcation is what keeps me sane.
Oh my God, I love it so much. I think everyone needs this in their life, whether they have children or not. I think just taking a step away from everything that is your normal routines is just so healthy. Like, I constantly put myself in different environments just to step away from my everyday spaces, and you just get stuff done, and it's so nice. So I'm so happy that you do that. And what I love even more is that you prioritize it over everything, and it's the first thing in the calendar. I love that so much.
Totally. I think because we'll take holidays, won't we? We'll go like holiday at Christmas, and we feel like we mustn't do any work, or we will block our diaries away from clients perhaps and say, right, we have to focus on work. But the thing for me about Bizcation is it's what I need in that moment with no guilt. So like, if nothing gets done, that's fine. That's what was needed in that time in order for me to have the energy to move forward in anything else.
I love that so much. Now, just before we start to wrap up, I would love for you to share with anyone listening right now who's maybe a few steps before you, starting out in their business, and they're looking to create a simple yet successful business. What are 3 pieces of advice that you would give them to focus on in those early stages?
So number one, decide what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That comes down to everything. And then remove limitation from yourself, and then lean into support. So you don't have to be a master of everything. Everything can be learned. Like we all came out as babies doing nothing. Like we couldn't lift our heads. Like it's everything, Maria Forleo, everything is figure outable. But it starts with, what do you want? Remove the limitation, and then lean into support. Keep it
So
as
simple.
literally as simple as that. And it could be even just in your home, like having somebody, like asking the kids to help you. That could be just that bit of support that you need to give you a little bit of space to do something else. So we're not talking complicated, but it really does start. Number one for me, like be all and end all, is, what do you want?
I love that so much. And I love that your answer is so simple, which is such an embodiment of everything you are and everything you do and you teach, right? So I love that. Now, for people that would love to get to know you more and even work with you, where is the best place people can find you?
So I hang out on Facebook or Instagram and my website, and you can find me everywhere at Emma Johnson and Co. So my website, emmajohnsonandco.com, and you can find me on all social media channels at Emma Johnson and Co.
So good. I will link everything below, as well as your incredible resources, so people can dive into your work. But I just want to say thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking the time today, jumping on and sharing all of your wisdom, your expertise, your knowledge, and your kind words. Means the world to me. And I know that this episode is going to be so helpful for everyone listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Have an awesome day.
If you thoroughly enjoyed this episode, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support fuels our mission to bring you even more valuable content every week. It truly means the world to me. My promise to you is that if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, I'll continue making incredible episodes such as this every week to help you to grow and scale your coaching business. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.